Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. I've just noticed the time. We were chatting away and it's time to start. So we've started. We're normally early. We weren't today. I hope everybody is well. A dear viewer, if you were here. Oh, here's a dear viewer. Hello, dear viewer. Gentlemen, good evening. Well, what should we start with? Where should we start? You're angry. Ian, you're angry.
I,
Ian the angry.
I am particularly annoyed today, and this is sort of a build-up. Obviously, in the UK, there's been a huge amount of legislation talk over the last couple of months, and we've almost a little bit got sidetracked by the FAA stuff because the UK stuff was all done and dusted a good year ago when we knew it was coming. And as we head towards the European legislation coming into force in the UK in July, end of June, July, we've sort of probably had our eye off the ball a little bit about what's happening. And for general users, everything's pretty much set in stone. But the guys who are commercial operators, the PFCOs, have sort of been sitting back and looking to see where this is all heading because we've not really been notified of what's going to happen. We know the PFCO is ending is in its current form. Let's just say you will still have an operating permission, but what you have today is basically being replaced by something called a GVC. However, you won't get a GVC. You'll still have your current permission, and you've got to go out and apply and do the course for the GVC again.
What does GVC stand for?
General, I've forgotten already. General something certificate.
Okay, all right.
I'll bring it back up. I've read it so many times today. GVC. I've been going around in circles with this all afternoon, and it's so you've got two elements to it. You've got the COFC, which is going to be the lower qualification, which is going to allow you to do some really cool things, actually. But the GVC is going to allow you to fly in very similar conditions to what we've got today. It's not quite set out what you're allowed, but it's going to be in the specific category. So it's going to move you away from the open category that the European regulations give all general users, and it's going to move you into specific. Now, the issue is, it was pretty clear early on that the PFCO won't just become the GVC. That's not going to happen. But there's been some talk of us getting grandfathered rights, and don't worry, it will all be fine. In fact, in some cases, the PFCO will be better to have than the GVC, and in some cases it won't. But what has been happening is, obviously, the NQEs are coming to an end and they're being relabeled to RAEs. So many acronyms in this, it's ridiculous, but NQEs are changing to RAEs, and we've had, I think we've had the first one have their tests and everything this week, and they've been talking openly about that, and we've seen some good content from those guys. And what we've had is bit more data falling out of all of the NQEs as they've all been talking to the CAA and getting more. And the basics of this is, it's looking like whilst the PFCO isn't worthless, it's certainly getting close to it. If you currently have a PFCO today, if you renew it, you will continue to keep the same permissions that you have, and you will continue to do that as long as you renew it. However, it appears to be the case, if you let it lapse, it is gone, and you will not be able to apply for it again, and you will then have to take the new course to be able to get a GVC certificate. So to a point, the PFCO will only be valid as long as you keep it current, and the second it no longer is current, it will end. Now, there is also some concern on this, that what's going to happen, how long is that going to be the case? How long will we be allowed to continue to renew it? And that hasn't been officially said. However, it's not a big stretch to think that we've got this transitional period for the aircraft till 2022. And my feeling is that you're going to end up being required to transition into the GVC by 2022 if you want to still get the same permissions. Now, the one thing to remember is, this isn't so much now about commercial operation. Commercial operation comes out of this now, because after July, commercial operation basically isn't the deciding factor, and it's where you're flying, not what you're doing. And so it's weird. The PFCO will cease to exist because it is a permission for commercial operation, and it will be an operating permission to be able to do certain things.
So now, it's sort of a little bit like Australia used to be before they started getting a touch of the madness. Tell us, especially in the lower class, tell us what you're doing. not exactly what you're doing, but don't screw up and you'll be all right, was basically it. Out of
Yeah.
the city.
It's what's annoying in this is, okay, the GVC looks nice. In some ways, it's not going to give you as much permission as a PFCO, and in others, it's going to give you more, because the way they've set this up is there's going to be very, not simple, but basic bolt-ons that you will be able to comply with. So today, if you want to do something outside of the standard remit, you have to have an OSC, which says, right, I want to do this, and this is my procedures for doing it, and you've got to pay lots of money and get it. What they are going to do is put together like almost bolt-ons. So you're going to have an extended visual line of sight bolt-on. That's going to be the first one. So you'll have a standard course in place for this. You'll have a standard set of operating procedures. So you'll be able to go to an REE and say, right, I want to do this course, which will give me the extended line of sight capability, rather than write your own individual one, and everybody who wants that write in their own individual one. So there is some good in this. What's annoying is that commercial operators who've been flying and operating for 10 years, say 5, 6, 7, 8 years, the PFCO hasn't. How long's the PFCO been around? Before that, it was something else, because it's changed its.
Yes, it was, wasn't it?
I'm trying to remember what it used to be called.
Yeah, I can't remember.
So, you could have guys with 100,000 hours or 10,000 hours or 1,000 hours on his aircraft. Yet, to get this new certificate, he's going to have to pay to upgrade to a GVC, which is a roughly £400. One of the REs is going to be offering that. You're going to have to do a day in a classroom, which is okay. You're going to have to do another flight test, and I just think it's.
Hang on a minute. Hang on. So I've got a PFCO now, and I want to keep operating. 400 quid in a day in the classroom. Or I've got a PFCO now, and I keep renewing it and keep myself in the paperwork loop. I don't have to do anything.
No, you can keep renewing, and you'll have the same permissions as you have today. Now,
Right.
the assumption is that. My assumption is, I should say, that that's going to be for roughly 2 years. No one knows. I don't see the CAA allowing that to happen forever. There has been one or two hints that it will be for the same period as the transition, because they're going to be running 3 different systems then. They want to transition everyone into this. So today, if you're a current holder, just renew and nothing will change for the next year or two. That's the reality. But at some point, the chances are you're going to have to pay to get shifted over into the GVC. It might be 2 years. I think it will be the end of 2022. Personally, I think it will all come into line with the end of the transition period for the models that aren't compliant, and I think it makes sense for that.
But at the end of the day, that extra 400 quid when you've had to re-equip all your aircraft, that's a mere bagatelle, because you'd have had to have changed everything by then, wouldn't you, to be compliant?
That's the interesting bit. Now, I was originally saying no, but I might have been very wrong on this, because the GVC allows you to fly in the specific category. So not open, not A0, A1, A2, A3. It takes you out of that banding. Now, my assumption was that means you could fly any aircraft. However, I have seen a few comments saying you might actually be having to still have CE compliant aircraft. So there is a chance that after 2022, just to be able to operate, you must have a compliant aircraft. Now, this also begs the question, what happens on self-builds? What happens on the stuff you've been using, like the old S900s? They're not compliant. There's still a lot of commercial operators flying with big digital SLRs on the bottom of an S900. These guys have got a reliable bird that was worked for them from day one. Commercial operators don't go out and buy a new aircraft every year. When you have a tool, we all have that screwdriver in the garage. We all have that spanner, which does, it's your favorite bit of kit. That's what the word
calls me.
Yeah. Anyway. And the reality is, and I actually honestly think this is why DJI haven't replaced the Inspire 2 yet. Simply because I don't think the commercial operator demand for product is at all anywhere near where people think it is, because most guys are only doing low-end work. Yes, there are people earning big money, but the majority of guys are going out there and earning a scratch of a living from doing it full time. And it is, I've got on my soapbox about this today, and it's been interesting because I've had quite a few good comments. Kind of people want to try and I'm going to try and talk to some people to get some more info on it. What's really frustrated me on this is there's a bit of paper which I have, which is going to become, I feel, is going to become worthless. And whilst that might not quite be the middle of this year, the second I let it lapse, it vaporizes in front of me, and I think it's probably going to vaporize in 2 years' time anyway. But again, that isn't confirmed, so I should say that at this point in time.
Isn't that changed? All things change, don't they? Everything moves along. Isn't this the river of life? Isn't just what we've got to expect with these things?
It is. Change itself, I don't have an issue with. What I have an issue with is having to do another, to be honest, another flight test and a day in a classroom. You know, I deal with compliance and things all the time. At the end of the day, you know, take a driving test. If you've passed your driving test, every time they update the driving test, they don't make you sit it again. You know, most commercial operators are qualified, competent, experienced users. It almost feels like they're being treated like the guy who knows nothing. And that's, you know, a day in a classroom and another flight test. If he's been a commercial operator for 4 years, what is an hour and a half flight test going to prove? That, you know, and he's never had an incident, you know.
True enough. Well, and Phil Hunter said PFC allow you to fly your legacy aircraft and won't need CE-marked aircraft.
I need to bring that. I haven't got that, and I agree with that. And that's why I also think it will end in 2 years. And that because they are not going to want these aircraft out there. If we look in the US, the legislation was brought in to force everyone onto drone ID. Now, we didn't have that in Europe, but if you look at this, it's a little bit of a backward way to achieve the same thing, because if you force everyone to actually have this, then everyone is going to have to update their aircraft anyway. So, and again, for me, this isn't, you know, I don't understand why a PFCO holder cannot be very simply transitioned into the GVC with a big online test, even if it's a morning in a classroom, even if it's a day in the classroom. The transition into the GVC shouldn't be a big deal. Last year, they gave every commercial operator the ability to add night ops without any training. They simply made you put additional conditions in your ops manual. So you had to put in procedures for night ops. They removed the 7 kilo restriction, allowing you to fly up to 20 kilo aircraft last year, again, with no additional training. So you think of someone who's been flying an aircraft like an Inspire 2, they were allowed to do that on their ticket. And then suddenly we said, no, you can fly an M600 in congested area. They are vastly different aircraft, yet there was no training required to do it. They simply went, we're going to take that away from you and you can do what you want now. Yet to go up to this GVC, they're saying we've got to sit in a classroom for a day and do another flight test. And again, it's just not logical. It's, you know, flying at night is far more dangerous than flying in daylight conditions if you compare it to the visual line of sight options. Yet they just went, write what you're going to do and we'll say yes. And if we say yes, you can do it. We're not going to watch you do it. We're not going to try and make sure you do it. We're just going to say yes. But here we have to go through a day's training and a flight test. So I just don't think it's proportionate, basically.
Stuffed. What do you say, Bruce?
Yep. I think Ian's off his meds again. I think.
Yeah.
But it shows what a shambles the whole regulatory framework is all over the world. There's no consistency, and they're all scrambling madly to make changes for the sake of changes. Ian's saying it's more dangerous to fly at night. I know there's been a lot more people killed by drones at night than during the day.
100% more, Bruce. 100% more at night.
200%, I heard, but you could be right. This is the thing, though, that there's still people just doing stuff for the sake of doing stuff. An interesting thing that I noticed was this NPRM in America, AOPA, AMA, and EAA all requested an extension to the submission period. It was denied. So what's going on there? I mean, this is a 3-year thing. It's going to be phased in over 3 years. They can't give an extra month. Well, who's putting the pressure on the FAA to push this through? To you know,
I'm just looking for my rubber stamp. Hang on, it'll be here somewhere.
Yes. Yeah, this is pretty tragic stuff, isn't it?
What's annoying is I think, probably the biggest thing that's annoyed me in all of this is no one's told us anything. Look, you've got the NQ. I understand the NQEs who are becoming the REs. They're only finding this out themselves now as well. So fair play to them. They are, they're all giving bits out. They're all saying, look, we're coming across this. I know a guy who was on the phone to them for an hour a couple of days ago. They're getting dribs and drabs, and 722 is going to be cap 722 is going to be updated allegedly in a month or so. I think it was April to May. Last time they said that, it took a lot longer, so I'll reserve judgment on that, because again, when they removed that 7 kilo permission, when they removed the night ops restrictions, it was something like 7 months before cap 722 was released that actually reflected that. So the annoyance for commercial operators is you've got guys sitting here today who do not know what's going to happen, and it's okay saying just renew, you'll be fine. That's fine. That's okay, but that's not how you build and run a sustainable business. You need to know what you're going to be doing in 2-3 years' time. Okay, if you're not, no one's going to be that busy that they can't find a couple of days training, but it's about clarity and putting people in the picture, because at the moment we're being basically kept in the dark like mushrooms, and that's the annoying part. Fair play to the NQEs who have come out today and they've been dropping bits. They're literally finding this as they're going along. It's I'll be honest, all of the NQEs must be rubbing their hands together, and I don't mean that in a nasty way, but it's certainly going to help them along a little bit. Let's put it
helping
that way.
it's helping their business plan, isn't it? They can look a couple of years ahead and go, hey, we're getting 2 bites of the cherry here, kids.
Look, it is. It's going to revitalize those guys for a bit, which is like, okay, that's good. The COFC is the interesting one. However, the 1-to-1 rule is sort of kicking that back a little bit, because it's
1-to-1 rule.
There's a 1-to-1 rule. I better read. I'll double check what I'm about to say is right, but you have to basically stay the same distance horizontally as you are vertically.
Oh yes, yeah.
So whilst it does say you can fly as close as 5 meters in A2 with a aircraft with the slow mode, you still have to comply with that rule, and you can't be. So it makes it not as good as it looks on paper, and that's what James was on about before, because they slid the 1-to-1 rule in the back end. And whilst you think I can fly as close as 5 meters, well, actually you can't. It's so if
James, I don't go out much, Dunthorne. I read the small prints. Yes.
It's things. So someone, did they ever fix the TB55 batteries? I'll talk about that in a minute, because I know a little bit about that. But yeah, so I am annoyed. I'm frustrated. Again, I don't like the lack of clarity. This could have very simply been a document to the PFCOs, an email to all current permission holders saying, guys, this is changing this year. This is our intentions. We don't have it laid out quite yet, but this is what we intend to do. What I don't like is it having to be leaked online and everyone having to pick this up as they go along. So it's...
but forewarned is forearmed. They don't want that.
The thing is, it's happening anyway. Look, the CIA have all the power. At the end of the day, they can do what they want, and we have to follow. And as a commercial operator, we pay our money and we accept the rules, and we change the book every 3 days once they've updated the rules. And it's just frustrating, and it could have been handled better is probably the term. So I got, if I've got to pay some money and go back into a classroom, so be it. It is what it is. What I feel sorry for, and this is the bit that really annoyed me, is the guys who've let it lapse. And I think Ian is in that position. I don't think Ian renewed his, did he, Gary? I'm sure he let it.
I think he was considering not.
Yeah, sure. And the reality is the guys who have thought, you know what, I'm going to take a little bit of time out before this all changes and see what happens, are now going to have to pay their money or make the decision. Do I pay the 200 quid, roughly, to renew, or do I just pay double that and then get the new certificate? And for me, I'm in the same boat. My renewal is June. So literally, I have to look at this and go, do I really want to give them 200 quid to keep this going? Or do I put another 200 quid on it and go and have the update course? And but it's a decision. But the courses are starting to show now, and you've got the COFC is going to be about 250 pounds, I think it was. which is SkyTrain saying renew it. Yeah, it's again. There's a lot of talk about the grandfathered, and I hope that stands. I just have a feeling it might only be for 2 years, but yeah, that's my little rant anyway.
Yeah, Bruce briefly touched on that NPRM, the one of two now in America,
Yes.
and I looked and I meant to write down the number before I looked. I think it was 8,900, or is it 7,000? But it's less than 10.
Yeah.
It's less than 10,000 people have commented on.
But that's because I told them not to.
Oh, that's right then. Oh,
Yeah, so it's fine.
No, that's clear.
I'm an influencer. Didn't you know that?
Well,
we don't want them having plenty of time to peruse the things before the submission thing closes. But I have almost finished my video where I'm going to give people the guidelines for making submissions, because I think it's very important that they include a lot of science, fact, and evidence. For example, I don't think many people have included the George Mason University study that does the simple maths, crunching the numbers to point out the chances of aeroplanes and drones colliding. And that's the sort of ammunition you need to put forward to say, well, where's your evidence? Where's your risk assessment? Because the only risk assessments that have been done by George Mason University, and they say there's virtually no risk. And the insurance companies who say, here, have 5 million or 10 million pounds insurance for £20 a year. So they're saying there's no risk. So the FAA has to come back and counter that evidence, that fact, that science with some kind of response that can mitigate it. And I don't think they've got anything that will mitigate some of these facts. So I'm getting together the little arsenal of facts, science, and evidence, which everyone should include in their submission. And then the FAA is charged with the responsibility of explaining why they're going against the science, facts, and evidence, because according to the rulemaking policies, they must base the rules on science, facts, and evidence and risk assessment. So we've got to act cleverly, and we've got to follow the policy guidelines by which the rulemakers are bound, so that they then have to explain to the politicians why they've violated those guidelines in presenting an NPRM that is not based on anything except commercial pressure from the CDA.
Yeah. Sorry, Bruce, you've said this word a few times. I don't understand what it means. Can you just explain evidence? I'm just lost at this point.
Have you not watched TV drama programs, cop shows? You know, the evidence which says that. In fact, I'm going to get some evidence. You'll have to.
He's talking common sense again. Stop him talking
the links in the description. Show me the bodies.
On the 4th of February in the 4th of February in 2020, the word evidence has a huge and wide-meaning context and connotations, and history shall reflect.
Yes. Speaking of things, there's also a protest outside the FAA headquarters in Washington on February the 29th. A whole lot of people are going to be gathered out there to protest the NPRM. They figure the best way to do it is to actually show a massive numbers outside the FAA headquarters, hopefully get some media coverage, present their case to the public. So that's something that everyone who's within spitting distance of Washington, D.C. should be involved in.
We had down here, we had a similar sort of thing when they were bringing the commercial rules in, and the people went and blocked the car park at our Civil Aviation Authority, put big banners up, got hold of the media, and that just infuriated our regulator, who kicked a load of positive stuff out in an instant, in a spiteful, I'll show them kind of way, because they blocked the car park. So haven't you got to be a bit careful with that sort of thing, or is it?
Well,
okay?
I don't know, because if you look at this NPRM, it's as bad as it could possibly be. It bans the hobby over a period of years. So what have they got to lose? They got nothing to lose.
It doesn't ban the hobby. I've seen plenty of people telling me it's all going to be all right. It's going to be fine. What are all these old codgers talking about? Come on, and like in the UK, just pay your money and get on with it. What does it matter?
There's one thing everyone forgets. One thing everyone forgets. You can put bombs and guns on these drones, so don't piss us off.
No.
We need a button. We need a button for the demonetizer. It just flashes on the screen.
Demonetization bingo. What's it going to be? Who's going to call it? Yes.
Yeah.
Well, have we seen the ISIS body count logos this week came out again, and then their shopping list for gear, and something that's been on my mind is the term #drones for good immediately infers there are drones for bad.
Yes.
I'm getting annoyed with hashtag drones for good. It's just hashtag drones doing the job they're meant to do. Some of them are doing good things and some of them are doing bad. Yeah. But, I wish we'd stop. I think we're sending the wrong message with drones for good.
Well, you're saying it can be used for bad. You're acknowledging.
Yeah, you are, aren't you? You're saying it.
Because you're automatically doing. What annoyed me about those stories, and I read a couple of the Twitter posts, there was DJI took some shit on that, pardon my French. And I think it was unfair because you look at that list, there's a lot of manufacturers and a lot of stuff on there, including Philip was on there as well, and he was vocal about it. And look, at the end of the day, if someone wants to do something bad with something, it doesn't matter if it's a screwdriver or a knife. We've had the thing in London this week. You can't blame the tool. The tool is not the cause of the issue. If it was
another thing the wife calls me.
It's the tool behind the tool.
It's the tool behind the tool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If someone wants to get hold of a piece of equipment in another country, they'll just post it there. They'll just buy it via a different country and it'll just ship in. That's just easy stuff.
Yeah, the example I like to use is pressure cookers. They use them as bombs in the Boston Marathon. We haven't got registration for pressure cookers. They're not a restricted item. You don't have to operate them under police supervision, but they have killed people in the hands of terrorists. Drones have never killed anyone in the Western world, even in the hands of terrorists. Yet we're coming down with these much harsher regulations. There is no consistency. There's no, these are the questions that must be asked and they must be answered, and they have to answer to the politicians, because fortunately with these rules, the politicians ultimately are the ones with the rubber stamp. And if you can convince the politicians that this is not good, then it doesn't matter what the regulators say, the politicians can basically veto it. And I think that's the only hope they've got in the USA.
That's one rubber stamp. Oh, sorry, Ian. I'll go on to my head. That's one rubber stamp in one hand. In the other hand, and the other rubber stamps being taken out of the drawer, and that's the news of another NPRM to do with standards and to do with airworthiness standards, and it's only for the cargo delivery drones, so it doesn't really matter. It's not going to affect you and I. There's no way I could ever see that the two will somehow mix and it'll all get conjoined. That'll never happen. I mean, the good people at Amazon and Google have got our interests and hobbies at heart. I know they have, and they'll make sure that nothing goes through in this second one that's being, look at this shiny thing. Remote ID is, look at that shiny thing over there whilst we do this over here with airworthy standards. And that, I think this also stands to be a worry, and that's largely to do with mil-spec stuff. STANAG standards is where they want to go with that, which makes sense in a lot of ways. But if that comes in, then we have at it, because there's no way you'll be able to. There's no way you'll down the AMA field you'll be at NATO standard flying gear. No way. Sorry, I ranted a bit there. Sorry, carry on, Ian.
I've lost my button. I lost my button. Sorry. Yes. I forgot what I was going to say now.
No, I went on too long, but I do think remote ID. Yeah.
I think it was just regarding that, as you said, as you brought up, it was on the drones in the Middle East and things, and it's as you say, if you look at the drones for good, you're automatically acknowledging that there's a drone for bad, and it's been interesting because if you look at this week, we've seen some really cool things for drone use. In China especially, they've been using crop sprayers to spray antibacterial chemicals and to try and kill off the coronavirus. You've had then them using drones with speakers on to warn people, and it just goes to show that in a disaster situation or in a situation where things are changing rapidly, how the technology can help and how it can get involved. That you can have your own questions on whether you should chase old people with drones shouting "get back in your house," but that's a slightly different argument. But it does make a point of it shows that you can get the message out there for people in areas where traditional media doesn't exist in a new and fast way. But on the flip side of it, you can't deny the fact that if something exists and someone thinks they can use it for a bad purpose, they're going to use it. And it doesn't matter. You can't blame the manufacturers for that. It doesn't matter who the manufacturer is. And even when they put steps in, I was talking to someone, I can't say who he is or what he is or where he's involved, but he deals with a lot of nasty stuff. And he said they know what aircraft to buy. The modern stuff's no good. They can't unhack the Mavic. The Mavic 2 still can't be hacked. They don't want that. They're going out and buying the old Phantom 3s, the Phantom 1s, the Phantom 2s, because they know what these models are capable of doing and they know which ones they want. And the big issue isn't people ordering in millions of pounds worth of new aircraft. They're no good to them. They're picking up the used stuff off eBay. They're trawling the Facebook sites because that's the equipment that will allow them to do this. So it's not as simple as putting the manufacturer at fault, because at the end of the day, some of this stuff was sold 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, it's also very, very much bolted, and a lot of people are saying it's to shore up. We've said it last week, probably the week before. I've said it anyway. Shore up the American industry. Well, the American industry needs to get rid of ITAR if they really want to have an industry. If they get rid of the ITAR restrictions, then all will be good, and that's what stopped it. That's what stopped it back in the day. I was wearing this for this very reason. Go on.
You're saying you can buy a drone off eBay, wipe the blood off it, and use it for bad things?
It just makes me laugh. Now, obviously, you've got the US. DJI have been very vocal this week about the Department of Interior ban. There's a huge amount of irony to a lot of this, because the more you look at it, it affects far more others than them in some ways. I think it wasn't much models. It was 200 to 300. It wasn't, we're not talking big numbers. Again, look, you have to be reasonable with what you're regulating and why. We've had it this week with Huawei, the whole thing in the UK, how we're idiots about allowing them to put their equipment in our cabinets. How far do you go, I suppose, is the thing when it comes to spying. If they want to listen into my phone calls, go for it. They'll be soon bored.
Well, the government does anyway. I mean, it's just a case of which government, isn't it? So,
which government? Exactly. Yeah.
And the thing is, you've got to weigh out its pros and cons, the benefits versus the downside. The UK could say, well, we're not going to go 5G. We will go back to tin cans and string while the rest of the world enjoys modern technology because we're a little bit paranoid.
Yeah.
5G has other dangers, and the dangers are hype. Surely, just all the nonsense.
Hype.
5G is it's being blown into the next coming, and it really is going to be.
But I'm pretty sure 5G proves that the Earth is flat.
More monotone blown into the next coming. I'll definitely get this. Definitely get this demonetized. But thanks, Ian. Nicely done.
It's being hyped as it's not going to be any better than Wi-Fi. It's not going to be any better than cellular. It's going
to do everything. It's going to take my children to school. It's going to do the gardening. It's going to do everything. Every single device in my
technology.
house.
It's going to be quick under the pole. And the second you move anywhere with a tree, you're going to be going, where's my 5G gone?
Well, just the sheer. I'm not sure the number of extra masks that you need to make it work efficiently, but it's lots and lots and lots and lots, isn't it?
But think about it. Your phone will wait 10 times more quickly between keystrokes.
It's just. It's there's a lot betting on 5G in the UK. I can't wait for it to land and everyone go. I can 4G is quick enough. I'll hand on heart.
That's what they said about dial-up modems. That no one will need more than 300 baud. But speaking of which, have you seen Elon Musk's satellites zooming overhead? They've been zooming over New Zealand and creating all sorts of stirs. And look at the drones!
Unfortunately, we've had cloudy night skies, thundery skies. I've tried a couple of times to go and look, and we've set up a bench at the school and perhaps with some beers for the teachers. But no, sadly, no, too much weather. But yeah, and that's another weird old thing, isn't it? We go and sit in Ranty Corner. How can a company be allowed to pollute the sky quite so much? Or is that just
They get federal government permission, and there's I think there's the FAA. Some part of the federal government allows you to put satellites. They're going to get permission to put them up there. But if you notice that there's a Russian satellite stalking an American military satellite, it's so good. There's some cool things going on there. It's a wonderful place, space. We need more of it.
It is interesting because when you saw that network, even I thought, ooh, do you know what I mean? You looked at when they showed like the visual of how many will be around the Earth. You just thought, oh, you know, where is the point where we go enough, or we're not going to be able to, you know, there has to see. Yeah, there's no global policy on control of space or agreements of what you will do. I'm guessing the countries have nothing in place to say. Don't start on that one. Is that before? Yeah, it's there's no global policy, and it is interesting of where do you draw the line? Because what happens now when Russia shoves up another 500 satellites, or China decides to shove up another 500 satellites, and you know we're going to end up like the what was the last Highlander film with the dome? Was it the thing over the which was the last Highlander film, wasn't it, where they had the dome over the Earth because the layer had gone, the ionosphere had gone, and they couldn't block the sunlight.
Actually, if you do the math, it's really overhyped. Space is really big. And we're talking about a lot of geostationary stuff. It's way out there. The sheer volume of space is so great that the odds of things colliding are incredibly small. And I think if something explodes and there's lots of little bits of fragments of shrapnel and stuff, but as satellite versus satellite, and most of the satellites, if it's a low Earth orbit and it comes to the end of its use, they basically dump it into the atmosphere. If it's a geostationary, they push it out a few hundred kilometers and then it's way out of the way of harm. So I think the media loves to hype this up almost as much as drones.
Well, I was going to say, is it safer? How many of it? Because there was nearly a collision last week, wasn't there, over America, missed by but a few feet. Sean Barney saying, I think it's all about Amazon wanting the 400 feet and below airspace, yes. And then all these satellites is to get above the other bit that Amazon wants, which is above flight level 660, but not space. So,
while I've got you guys, or Ian anyway, you're going to be part of the EASA rules. You're going to enjoy them and flourish under them. This whole thing about FPV, and I've raised it in one of my videos, having a camera on your drone makes it require registration under the, allegedly registration, because it has a personal data collection device, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So if you're flying it in the country where there's no persons around, does it need to be registered? Because it can't collect personal data if there's no persons around, right? And if you're not actually recording it, is it a personal data collection device or relay device? Because there's a significant difference.
It is interesting because, as you say, they make a very specific, clear case, which is going to force a lot of the aircraft under 250 grams to have to register, which everyone's going, you'd have to register under 250 grams. Yes, you do, because of the video capture device. That is a very good point, because if you can demonstrate that where you're flying, there is no chance of privacy being broken. So if you're flying somewhere where you have full control and there's no access to it, technically, I suppose the argument is, I'll have to relook at the wording. Does it say if it's fitted, if it's capable, or if it is capturing data? Because they are very different things, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm not sure. But also the whole issue, what does capture constitute? To me, when you capture something, you retain it. Like you capture an animal, you put it in a cage, you retain that. If you are simply relaying the information from one point to another, but not storing it, it's not captured. It's just relayed, and therefore that falls outside the scope as well. So if you've got
doesn't one manufacturer say capture the moment? Are you capturing a moment now? I mean,
but you're putting it onto an SD card, aren't you? That's the thing.
Yes.
And if you've got no SD card in the model and you've got no DVR or SD card for your goggles, it's not capturing a damn thing. It's not doing anything you couldn't do by flying over the same spot in an airplane looking out the window.
It's sad when you can remember the numbers of the legislation off the top of your head. I'm at that stage now with a lot of this, the amount we've read on this over the last 2 years. Right, let's have a look at this, Bruce, what the wording is, because this is in the EU 2019-945 or 947.
Oh, yes. I've spent a lot of lovely time with that one. Oh,
it was on the tip of my tongue.
It's in here somewhere, and it's in the registration section, not the craft requirements section, if I remember, because they wound it sort of to the side, not in the main section. Or was it in the CAA document? I'm trying to remember. Let's have a look. I'll have a dig.
Oh, don't
It's a sign of maturity.
There you go. We all hark back to the days when we were talking about the French and the flashing Morse code light remote ID signal method. Oh, those sweet, happy days. Yeah. I see Patrick's obviously in the comment. Louis in the comments as well. Evening to you, gentlemen. Oh. Yes, I'm in Rwanda next week. This week is conference time, and I've been to those. And next week is the competition. There's already been an off in the scrutineering side of things. A very large H2 powered multi-rotor didn't do so well in the landing portion of its flight. So I've seen evidence of that, and I look forward to seeing more stuff like that next week on the side of a lake in Rwanda. So yeah, that's next week. So it'll be very interesting to see how this runs there. You finished your reading yet, Ian?
No, I haven't got a clue where it is. I'll have to dig. It is a good point, Bruce, because as you say, there's a very big difference between actually capturing FPV alone. Just standard camera and goggles isn't recording. It's not. I wouldn't even argue that's a data capture device at that point. It's a visual device, not a data capture device. So, yeah, technically there's a get out there. Obviously, if you're below 250 grams.
And you've annoyed a lot of people with your, sub 250 kilos, but sub 250 gram video. Well, not annoyed, but...
yeah, I know. Because a lot of people were saying, oh, you're advocating breaking the law, and, people want to fly, blah, blah. I said, well, you can not register and still fly and not break the law. It's just a choice you can make. It's, because people say, I don't have any choice but to register. Yes, you do. It is a choice. No one is holding a gun to your head and saying you must register. They're just saying if you want to fly aircraft bigger than 250 grams, you must register. And interesting is a lot of the clubs in the UK apparently have not allowed members to rejoin without registering, even if they're flying sub 250. It's like, what right have you got? Because people have said, my club won't allow. I said, well, get ready, find another club, join another club, start another club. But any club that demands you register your details with the CAA, even when it's not legally required, I wouldn't be a member of that club. Mind you, they probably wouldn't have me either. So.
No, well, that's the old saw, isn't it, about any club that would have me. Lee Davis saying this is called pay to play, and it exactly is. And the terrible thing is, this unfortunately, this does turn into, we told you so. We've been talking about 250 grams now for 2 or 3 years as being the place where it was going to go, and we've been mentioning pay to play. And there's been some articles by some of the, especially in America, because let's face it, America's worse off than most folks, because there are companies with vested interests in all of this going forward. And there was quite interesting things about why just radio-based remote ID wasn't good enough, and you do need to have an internet connection and all this, and it's just nonsense. It's just
that's one of the other points I'm making in my recommendations for NPR in response. I'm going to get people to challenge the FAA. If RPAS are required to give way to manned aircraft, why can manned aircraft fly in Class G airspace without a transponder, but an RPAS can't? And these little things like that, which actually put the ball into the FAA's court, and they have to respond to that, and they have to say, well, this is why, but they don't have a this is why. And so if you put them on the back foot all the time, and the politicians are reading through the responses that the FAA make to these things, the politicians will get the idea, well, the FAA may not know what it's doing here, because look at all these very solid, sound, reasoned arguments against what they're doing.
Look at that helicopter crash. The FAA actively ignored the recommendations of the NTSB. So why bother having NTSB? And that was to retrofit or older helicopters with terrain collision avoidance stuff. But I would argue actually you didn't need that in that accident. You just didn't need to be flying in that weather in the way it was. So it might even have happened because pilots do ignore those systems.
But hang on a minute. That pilot had skin in the game. That crash should never have happened according to the regulators.
He did, well, according to all the pilots that say, hey, you haven't got skin in the game, mate. You've got to get out of the way. So, yeah, but how the FAA can't be censured for ignoring the advice of the NTSB, I just do not know. And how unlucky for the helicopter industry to have their major big show starting the day after that. So I'm not laughing about the crash, but all the spin. Can you imagine the meetings? How are we going to play this? How are we going to play this? From all the manufacturers the very next day when they were all asked about it.
And the irony of the fact that the FAA is rolling out an NPRM for unmanned aircraft airworthiness at a time when Boeing looks like they're going to have to scrap the entire MAX 8 fleet.
Oh, has it got to that point now? I didn't realize.
I did read one article that suggested they might have to scrap them all because it's something they just can't fix.
It was all. It's funny. I read an interesting article on that because I didn't quite understand the whole cause until I had a look, and the fact they moved the engines forward and all of that because of the clearance off the ground because of what Airbus managed to do, and it's quite interesting when you look at it, and they've basically made an unflyable aircraft without electronics, haven't they? And that's the problem with it, and I wouldn't be surprised. Right, Bruce, I have an answer.
Okay, we're ready.
Right, you must register if it's over. Well, if it is 250 grams or more. And that is the terminology they use is that is equipped with a sensor able to capture personal data. A sensor
doesn't
say store, says capture.
No, but capture implies storage.
Storage. I would agree with Bruce on that. My take would be
no.
But it's see. It's greater than.
We need to. What's that lawyer? What's that English lawyer's name? We need to get him. This
way you have when you're fishing, you have capture and release as opposed to capture.
Yes.
Right. Capture implies you're holding on to something. In fact, you look up the dictionary, I suppose. But no, because otherwise, your eyes are a data capture device. If you anything like that. If you have a closed CCTV without a recording, it's not a capture device. It's a monitoring surveillance device. Totally different.
And here is an interesting.
I bet they use that term to make it ambiguous, so they can walk a good lawyer up and make that case.
And does it mean that if the aircraft can't record, therefore it's not compliant? Because remember, generally the FPV aircraft are not recording, it's all doing on the goggles. So if the camera side is purely transmit, it doesn't say the system, it doesn't say the aircraft. What they actually say is UAS operators shall register themselves when operating within the open category of any of the following unmanned aircraft with a minimum takeoff weight of 250 grams or more. And there is impact jewels thing in that as well, Bruce, the safety aspect. And that it is equipped with a sensor able to capture personal data, unless it's classed as a toy. So unless you can force it through that document, and I still haven't read that one. I need to read that one a lot more closer.
So the police will have their jewellometers with them as well as their scales.
Yeah. Well, if you hit them with it, you'll be able to prove how much damage it can cause. That's not a good idea.
This data capture thing, it's interesting. Like the personal data, what constitutes personal data to start with? The fact that you're somewhere is that, in a public place, there's no expectation of privacy. So if you're flying in a public place, no one can say their personal data has been taken because there's no expectation of privacy.
Well, take the GPDR. It's identifiable personal data. It's not as simple as personal data. It's identifiable.
As long as you fly more than 5 meters from someone with an FPV camera, you can't identify them.
No.
You might be able to if you are recording it and you can play it back. You might be able to identify them from their gate. Because gate capture is now
possibly the whole fence and everything.
Yeah. It also comes down to if that data can be used and put together with other data. So if you're collecting data on, if you take this 2 bits of data, if you were to film someone walking through the park and they were identifiable, the data you've captured is them being in that place at that time. That's who they are, where they are, when. Can that data then be put together with other data, such as their car? What if you caught the glimpse of their car in the car park? Did you catch their reg number? And that's where GPDR really kicks in, is how do you build a picture with that data, and what could it be used for? And it is scary. When you go down the rabbit hole, you could basically work out they're not home on this day at this time every day because they like to take the dog for a walk, therefore you go in and burgle their house. But that's what GPR. But the reality is, as you said, Bruce, A, how identifiable is it? B, if it's not being recorded on the aircraft itself, is that really a data capture device at that point? And if it isn't being recorded at all, I don't I personally wouldn't class a camera and goggles as a data capture device.
No, I'd love to be in the EU and fight this in the courts. I'd love to make an example of myself and take it to the courts, and just because you have to set a precedent before these things can be really sort of determined what goes either way. And I think that would be a precedent that'd be very easy to set if you have an FPV camera. A DJI digital, probably not so much, but analog stuff, definitely not a data capture device that will qualify.
No.
I really like Mitchell's comment there, is collision avoidance data capture. I guess it doesn't stick around, not persistent, is it?
No, if you take Skydio, the system doesn't record it. It records data off the back of it in the sense of diagnostic data.
I don't know what that means, but I'll put it up there. I'm too young. Whatever. Yeah, that's insightful.
Demonetized again.
Demonetized.
You'll be paying them money soon, Gary.
That's my train of thought gone again. It was to do with FPV. What were we saying, Bruce? You said DJI.
I said analog doesn't qualify.
Analog doesn't qualify, and then
you were talking about collision avoidance and
collision avoidance. Yeah, Skydio. Yes, the data isn't recorded because we did say it would be cool as pants to have the Skydio vision video that it does, but it doesn't hold on to that data because it's capturing it off 4K cameras, 6 of the damn things. So it's gigs and gigabytes a second of data. So technically, those aircraft don't, but do they take still captures? Do they take random captures of that data? And again, then could it be GPDR?
So under the GPDR or whatever it is in the EU, we won't be able to have remote ID on drones, will we? Because that tells you where the operator is.
Not if it's that's a broadcast thing. That would be interesting. The broadcast standard, not because of course they want it to be open so that multiple devices can receive it, and then it does create a problem.
It does. There is an argument that the pilot's privacy is being breached here by the aircraft telling everyone where he is. There is a fair argument because by capturing that data then, so if you were then to stick up a nice little mast on our roof and capture that Wi-Fi data, you would be able to build up a picture of the aircraft. You know its serial number because it's going to tell you its serial number. It's going to give you its operator ID as well if you're a law-abiding citizen, as we're all going to be when all of these laws come in. And then you will be able to build up a picture of how much work that person is actually doing and how often that person is flying. And suddenly then it becomes a very interesting situation.
It's commercially viable data, isn't it? I sit there, well, how many, I'm the next farmer. How often is he over the fields with his machine? Oh, this many times. Oh, that's interesting.
I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on here. I've just noticed something. All this movement towards privacy and things, a lot of people are saying that there's a certain religion that's trying to take over the world, right? Eventually, to protect our privacy so we won't be recognized in a public place, we're going to have to wear hijabs, is it? Those face veil things.
Oh God!
It'll be illegal.
No.
Okay, let's load this up. He's upset the English. Right? He's upset the English this week, right?
Yeah. Never mind.
You did go a little bit too far on that one, Bruce.
Oh no, everyone's fair game. Come on, let's be fair. They can sling off at me. I don't care.
Well, it's very much like ADSB, the all new, all shiny 2020. Let's roll it out. Everyone magically thinks, oh, it's a wonderful new technology. No, it's not. The standard came in the 1990s, and it's very dated thinking. And the remote ID thinking is dated thinking. These are digital devices. There's got to be a better, secure way of letting if you need an airport near an airport, a low cost way of security people seeing who's doing what, then that's got to be simple to do. It's got to be, and it's got to be a broadcast method, and it's not going to be open. But the idea that, sorry, and I'll stop ranting very shortly, but the idea that every light aircraft wants to see every drone operating at low level as it goes from A to B is just a ridiculous concept.
The aircraft don't, the government does, isn't it? It's the government. They want to know exactly who's doing what everywhere at every time. In the UK, they've used CCTV cameras. In the USA, they're going to use remote ID.
It's interesting. I saw a cracking tweet today, which made me laugh, which was someone who put on Twitter, I've been a software engineer for 25 years. I've designed software, I've implemented software, and I'm the most qualified person in the world to tell you shouldn't use software for anything. And it just summed the whole thing up for me, which is just, they're trying to solve up every problem with software. It's software. We're gonna put software in place. It's going to tell everyone where they are, and it's.
Has it got an API? As long as it's got an API,
it'll have an API, and it'll have blockchain, and then it's going to be tied.
Ian mentioned the key word, the problem. What problem?
Yes.
Risk analysis. Where's the problem? I mean, we're talking about things where they're saying we have to do this because we say there's a problem, but they haven't proven there's a problem. Until you can actually prove the problem, define the problem, scope and quantify the problem, your solutions are never going to be a solution.
No.
Go on, Ian, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I got into an argument on this very subject with the CEO on Twitter of one of the very big companies who is pushing for this. And, there was a cracking comment that came back that said, you around charging for the USS providers in the USA, which you're going to need for the network ID solution. And the term I said was, it's going to be between $0 and $10. So they estimate around $5. And he said, you're listening to media hype. And I went, no, we have this regulation because of media hype. What I'm telling you is what the government have said they intend it and they expect it to be. And, there's some talk that some of them are going to give this away for free. But the irony of being told by the people who are trying to implement something that I'm listening to media hype when what they're implementing is entirely based on media hype just took me over the edge as well, that one did. So.
Now, I'm an entrepreneur. I always look at problems and consider them to be an opportunity. And I've been looking at this whole problem, and I think I've come up with a solution. I want to buy a piece of land here. Piece of land here, it doesn't have to be very big. And I want to turn it into a area where people can come and fly their drones and their model aircraft and their RPAS, whatever, without regulatory encumberment. I want to just the open skies up north in New Zealand here. They had that thing, but that was still, you had to have night changes.
Is that still going? Is that still happening?
I haven't heard anything about it. I think the fact that it was really nothing because you still had to operate within the rules and get bloody exemptions and stuff. It was like, well, it's like flying anywhere then, isn't it? I want to create an area where basically the rules say manned aircraft keep out, right? You're not allowed in here. It's too dangerous. You can't come in here. And there's nothing on the ground that can be damaged. And then you can set it up and people can fly to whatever altitude they want. They can fly beyond their visual line of sight. They can do whatever stuff they want to do because there's no risk to person, there's no risk to property, there's no risk to aviation. And that way, people will come from around the world to enjoy this because in their own country, they can't even fly a sub 250 because the rules have put them out of the air. And so it's going to be a massive tourist attraction to New Zealand. I will make a fortune. I will retire in wealth and splendor. Job done.
It's interesting.
Sorry, isn't Bruce Land NZ. But isn't your airfield? Oh no! What I would like to do with an airfield, if I had lots of money, is I'd like to build houses on it. Know anybody that might be in that situation?
Yeah, that's a brilliant idea. In fact, that looks like what's probably going to happen to our airfield if the local council has its way, because they think they've run out of money. I think it looks like they've spent way much more money than they've got. It's a big embarrassment, so they need to sell off some assets, and the only assets they've really got that include, by selling off an airfield, they can turn it into housing because there's a big housing shortage as well. They can kill two birds with one stone. So they discussed in the last council meeting the prospect of converting some of the airfield land into housing. And no doubt it'll be sold as, don't worry, the airfield will still be there. And the people who are living at the end of the runway, they won't care about the planes flying over their heads and making noise all day because they would never complain. And we know how that goes.
And then you get the noise regulations, and you'll get restricted time, and then it'll be a dead zone, and then it won't be usable, and then they'll tarmac the rest of it and put more houses on it.
All be housing. Yeah, that's right.
That's basically what's happened at Filton, home of the Brabazon and Concorde and all that sort of a thing with Rolls-Royce there. They built, sadly broke, Bradley Stoke on the one end of the runway, and then the noise complaints went up and Filton's no longer an airfield. It's craziness.
It's interesting. Skytrain said something very interesting there, and we were talking about this, and I just looked at the video. It's nearly 12 months ago we were talking about the UK regulations that came in, and we were kicking off at how draconian these were, and he said it's interesting, the UK DFT turned down drone ID. They said we don't want that, and it's all coming in now as part of the Europe regulations. Whether they had some foresight on that, I don't know, and whether they sat back and thought we'll let this slip through, or they felt that it wasn't a requirement. But it is interesting when you look back at that period. I just looked at the video when we did Save Our Skies and we were screaming for the UK. And back then, as we've said this many times, back then all of this looked really terrible. And now it just looks downright reasonable. And it's a sad state of affairs where we're sitting here going, well, I'm sitting, you know, Bruce is still raving, but I'm sitting here going, okay, I can take bits of this. The annoying, I think, Drone ID, you touched something very interesting, Agulia. I think if it wasn't fully open, I'd accept it. I'd have no issues with it. As it is today, my aircraft are doing it anyway. DJI have Aeroscope, so it is doing it. My fundamental issue with Drone ID, whether it be network or broadcast, is telling the open public the location of the pilot. And I feel that is a risk, because someone sees an aircraft in the sky, they've got your data. I've worked in many industries in the past and investigated things where people have been accused of things, and it happens because people don't like what they see. And all it takes is someone seeing a drone 400 foot to the side of their house, and the next bit of information you get was it was flying in my back garden through my window. Here's the serial number. Here's the operator ID. I want him arrested, please. Next minute, you've got a knock on the door when you were legitimately doing a commercial job in a town fully within your permission, and someone's got that data. And I just feel it's a step too far when it's public. Give it to the police. Absolutely fine. I'd have no issues with them having a special piece of equipment that went, oh, yeah, that's his details. Let's go and have a chat with him. But the open aspect of it raises massive concerns, especially for commercial operators, because what you don't need and what you have to do as part of your PFCO, as it is today, is set out how you will deal with land incursions, how you will deal with people who enter your flight site, and you are just asking to have someone wander in and rip a controller out of your hand, because we all know what these things
sorry,
are.
I'm jumping in. Sorry, I'm being rude, but those police extra powers, the words "and land the RPAS." What do you mean, and land the RPAS? That 20-kilo lidar equipped, £500,000 machine.
Yes.
Oh, all right, I'll have a go at this then. I can't be too hard, can it? You know. No. So you're an aircraft. In one point, when they're coming to prosecute you, you're the pilot of an aircraft, and you shall fly and abide by the law as such. However, plod. And so, you know, you'll be held. If you crash that into Mrs. Miggins' greenhouse, you'll be in trouble as a pilot. If plod crashes it into Mrs. Miggins' greenhouse, well, what happens then?
Yeah.
But I mean, don't the police have the power, if they're on a manned flight, to actually walk into the flight area and take control of the plane and land it if necessary?
Yeah, that's right. I believe that's the case. Yeah, that's
I'm sure that's the case.
Land. Yeah.
It is, and obviously these UK powers going through Parliament now. They're in the House. They've had their second reading, I think it is, in the House of Lords. They're going to go through. There's no question that's now a train at full steam heading through the tunnel, because this isn't in public hands, this is in the government's hands, and it's going through the Lords, and it'll go through Parliament, and you've got Baroness Voicey, I think it is, behind it. And this is, the police will get those powers, and we're going to end up in the same situation as photographers were in a few years ago, because when the new anti-terror laws kicked in, photographers were starting to get pulled left, right and centre, and actually guys who were sort of out and about taking pictures of places, you know, suddenly police were using anti-terror powers to actually stop them taking pictures. And there's some genuinely good articles on this through DP Review and all of those other sites where photographers were suddenly being threatened with anti-terror laws for taking pictures near sensitive sites, which generally just happen to be in places of natural beauty, because that's why they put sensitive sites there, because they're out of the way. And again, you're going to get the same scenario. You're going to get police use these powers. You know, again, they will have access to everyone's details. So in my town, you could have someone fly who doesn't register, yet they'll look on the list and go, ooh, he's registered, he's this, knock my door, where were you yesterday? And I just don't see why I should have to answer that question.
My next project, especially for my UK viewers, is a flying knife. So give up flying models, start flying knives. You won't be bothered by the police at all.
This is a fantastic comment, and again, insightful one that we should spend a few moments we should perhaps just have a moment of silence to consider that. I think You know, it's very true.
I can hear the conspiracy charges being laid now.
Or as long as it's not sort of not an explosive
Last
charge.
week they didn't. Okay, yeah, unfortunately like I said, the UK is lost, and it is what it is, and we'll make the best of it, and we'll figure out. You know, Boris is going to put us all on a high-speed train from London to the north sometime after a couple of $100 billion, and then it'll be.
To me, the north is anything north of Bristol, and Europe's anything east of Bristol.
To be honest, I think to London, north is anything above Cambridge, if I'm honest.
Well, no, in the M25, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, not yeah.
I've got to say, we are no longer a member of the EU. I should add.
Yes, yeah.
You know,
I think the world noticed.
Absolutely nothing's changed.
Didn't they close the Channel Tunnel?
We've never been members of the EU here.
No.
We are. We're like Bruce. We're in the Commonwealth. We're back in the Commonwealth. We're in the Commonwealth. There ain't groups.
They wanted New Zealand to join the EU, but we couldn't spell it, so they kicked us out.
Yeah, but I understand you lot are the common part of, and we're the wealth. No, anyway. But moving on swiftly. I know that wasn't very nice, was it? Sorry, that wasn't very nice. Him and his Australian ways. Yeah, there's skullduggery afoot, left, right, and centre, and I think a lot of it is based on still wildly inaccurate forecasts for how much money this is going to make everybody this industry is going to make, and stuff's going to be put in place that is going to be very, very hard to undo moving forward. I really, I give up hope, but I see trying to segue into something more jolly, but failing. I see you've done your review of the rover now.
I have finally. I'm not 100% happy with it, if I'm honest. It's one of those videos. It got longer and longer and longer and longer, and you just think I have to end this. And if I don't, it'll go on for 2 hours because there is so much.
I think that is how we feel generally when watching your channel.
Yeah. I wish this would just end.
I
can tell that it's about 1.5 minutes, the average view time. No, but they just get past the first bit once I get the shilling out the way, and then they cut off. Then, I have, and I was a little frustrated with this one. It hasn't come out as I wanted, but it is what it is. Okay, it's a nice overview. It's just so much to cover on it. There is so much to it. There really is. The build went really well. It's one of the. I'll fundamentally say it's one of the most enjoyable things I have done in a long time. It's a nice kit. It goes together extremely well. It's 2 hours that you think, I enjoyed that. That was fun. And I spent some time with the kids doing it. And then I've spent a lot more time firing balls around my garage, as you've seen if you actually watched the video.
Firing balls around your garage? What? You do what? Ian, put a link in the chat for FX Node there. And what's your channel called again? New name?
Oh, it's changed. Yes. I'll put a link. Yeah, I don't even know what it's called myself these days. Mads tag. Let me stick it in. Yeah. It's you know what? It's a cracking bit of kit, and it's one of those things. For me, it's the right time. It's winter. It's the right time to be playing with something like this. It really is. Let's put a link in here. It's not had many views, so I could do with the help.
But they are they going? When they're going to bring the boat out? When they're going to bring the submarine out? When they're going to bring all the other bits that don't fly out?
They're a very diverse company as it is. I think if you look at them, the ground stuff, the camera stuff, the action cameras. So it's always interesting to see where they're going to go next. It'll be interesting to see. I'd love a bigger one, a proper customizable, and there's tons you could do to this. It's just, if you're willing to mess with it and go, right, I'm taking the blaster off and I'm going to put something else there and do all of that.
Real gun.
it's a real gun.
So what should we do? Just to make it every 10 minutes? Should we agree something like every 8 or 9 minutes we demonetize the video?
Yeah. It's a good bit of kit, but no, it is out. I've done it. I'm in this funny period where I'm not happy with pretty much anything I put out, but this one I was hoping to do something a bit different and a bit better. But it's a good overview. It's a very good overview. It covers most of it. I take you through what most of it does. I think I'll have to do a second video on the programming stuff. It's just too long.
So if you had a bigger version of it, what would you get it to do? Because I know what I'd like a large overview here. That's quite simply move logs and stuff about. I'd like an autonomous wheelbarrow. That's what I'd like.
Yeah, I would like one where the mechanism wheels pick up so much crap, it's ridiculous. Okay, so they're not good for outside. If you do put them outside, these ones will wear very quickly because they're foam covered. So if I'd like a larger one with maybe full stainless mechanism wheels or aluminium rather than having the plastic rollers and foam cover, or solid plastic rollers actually, but they do pick up a lot of crap. It would be great to have it so it was almost more like a Meccano build, if you get my point, rather than the plastic chassis, very a metal-y chassis with, you know,
you hang stuff off it.
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool to have like a Meccano, and there's nothing stopping you building one. You know, I'm still building my Rover. It's still over here. I've had about a month and a bit off it because I've had other stuff going on.
But I put this really close to the camera, it looked like a huge thing. Yeah,
you know, I'm still doing the Ardra one. It's in a bit of a sorry state, but it will be back in action in a couple of weeks. But yeah, I think it would be cool to have a larger one that could fire tennis balls at people.
And FX Node robo barrows exist. They do already exist. I thought it was a good idea, but they already exist. I really outside of my price range.
I really want to put an autopilot on a lawnmower. I don't know why. I just want to put an autopilot on a lawnmower. It's got to happen at some point. Loads of people have done it, and it's just I've got to do that at some point. I can trim my carpet or something like that in here, but
because drones aren't dangerous. Lawnmowers are dangerous.
Autonomous
lawnmowers that don't stop for children. Well, be fine.
What was that thing you wanted to make? Some sort of knife-based thing, wasn't it, Bruce? It's just that sort of a thing, isn't it?
Look, it's and that's what concerns me about the drone ID regs, because the reality is, if I get a knock on the door and they come in here, I'm in jail. There's no in between. They're going to walk in here and go, right, that thing looks like a battle tank. That thing looks like a bomb. That thing looks like, you know, and that's the concern, is are they going to understand any of this workshop, let alone anything else? You know, the police are coming here and just have a field day. You know, I should stop wrapping my lipos in white gaffer tape to make them look like other things, but
God, yeah. But it's yet another assault on the shed nation, shed world. Firm believer here that all good things in life come out of sheds, and you know, by sanitizing the drone world and making it only from approved manufacturers, it's going to stop people building things in sheds and other stuff.
One thing I want to know, the Drone X people have put a new commercial out. Have you seen the new ad for Drone X? The Drone X HD. Yeah, and it uses that same thing. You know, employee gets fired for inventing indestructible drone. So he then decides to build his own drone, and he also finds that he used to work for a major drone manufacturer, and this guy's got a Phantom 3 on the desk. And so he found out that they use only cheap parts and it's all profit and blah, blah, blah. But all the way through, they're showing DJI products. I wonder if DJI shouldn't sue the snot out of these people, because it's impugning the DJI brand, basically saying DJI use crap components, they have huge profits, they fired this guy because he was too good. Why DJI not taking some action against this?
I don't think they can do anything about it, because if you notice, a lot of this advertising is on Facebook and things like that, and you always notice a lot of the dodgy ads go on Facebook because they're almost untraceable. That's the problem with it.
So this is on YouTube. They've got to pay. You know, Google. They've got to have a bloody account to do that. And besides which, you know, the company itself, they still say at the end, we make it cheap because we don't advertise. They say that in this ad. It's it's terrible. I should do a second video on it, because it is just so much worse than the first ad they put up.
Did they send you one to review, Bruce?
No, but I got one through the back door. I'm going to be reviewing it shortly.
I might email them and ask them to send me one to review.
Yeah, do it.
I might do it. They won't.
No, because they've had everything to lose and nothing to gain.
No.
I've seen what's popping up. I don't know if it's a worldwide thing, but popping up on Facebook in South African drone groups. There's a lot of people scamming people with early Phantom gear and Phantom 4s as well. Amazingly, lots of purchasing scams kicking about with those down here at the moment. I was playing it's not an international thing, so people are having money taken away from them from these dangerous old things.
It is. Yeah, Skytrain saying robot lawnmowers. Yeah, I've got 3 spare Pixhawks over there. I can mount one on. It's not an issue. I got one with ADS-B, so it will be the safest lawnmower in existence. Right? We're going to mount a Cube Orange with ADS-B in, so when you are driving the autonomous lawnmower around the fields, you'll be able to ensure that you remain on ground level and not affected by any manned aircraft.
Well, of course, the hands-free Hector people at a university, the name of which I'll remember as soon as we finished, they use RG Pilot, and they use big actuators on the on steering wheels, a little ride on tractors. What's the name of that university?
Yes, you can, Greg. Definitely, Greg. You can put one in your car all day long. It'll be fun. I start thinking what we can put Pixhawks in. Philip will love that.
Well, yeah, there is the idea that they don't actually want manned stuff to
we don't listen to it. We don't listen to him.
Don't listen to him. Oh,
don't
fair
listen
enough.
to Philip. Don't listen to
Fair
Philip.
enough. Fair enough. Oh, I know. What's her name? Uber. Was it Uber? Yes, it was Uber who said, well, actually, I think we'll be seeing manned urban air mobility vehicles flying in the sky by 2023, and ahead of delivery stuff. That's how it's going to work, and they're selecting their manufacturers in the next couple of weeks, and one of them still might be, and I'm not going to say this correctly, that Lilium thing, the German thing with the ducted fans. It calls itself a jet, but it's electric. It's ducted fans. And if you look out for that, there's not a video in existence that has the thing when it's flying that has sound. We have not heard it. So it's either utterly quiet or with like 40 ducted fans as loud as a Loudy McLeod thing, which I suspect it probably is.
It's you just see all of this stuff. Well, I remember, I will mention about this, the Hearlink. Where is it? Right.
Oh, yes, yes.
Solex, because I've seen a lot of people asking about this. It's probably fair to say they've been taking a bit of crap, Philip has, on the groups about Hearlink a little bit, about when's the updates coming, what's going on. It's been out a while. It has been out a while now, okay, but it was very early when it first came out. I was very lucky to have my hands on one really early from 3DXR. Ben sent me one over to have a look at. I basically begged him until he did it. And I think that's probably, Philip is really good at proficiency of allowing the public to access beta equipment. And that means you get early access. Yes, you're paying for it. You're not getting it for free. But in other ways, that also can bite him as well on the flip side of it, in the sense of it can take a bit of time before it is ready. And you are paying for it. And you have to understand that what you're buying isn't a fully developed product yet. If he didn't do that, he'd probably keep his hands on it for another 12 months. So we're just about a year, or just over a year, since Hearlink's come out, and Solex is very close to being ready, as I understand it. It's not here today, but it will be in the next... he didn't say when, but he said very soon. They've had to write a whole new launcher assembly for it. They've also got to write a lot more software that allows it to do the binding and the RC calibration and things like that. But Solex will be coming for Hearlink very soon. The only thing I'll say, guys, is just try and hang in there. I have seen some posts, and there's been a few negative posts on the forum, on the group, and I normally post over there a bit. I haven't had time in the last couple of weeks. And all I'll say is Philip is a very, very good guy. They want to do the best they can do at proficiency. Sometimes it takes longer than they like. It's certainly longer than we will like at times, but they will get there. And I can guarantee this will be a solid product. It really will. We've just got to be a bit patient. It's interesting because you see this with beta hardware sometimes, because the other option he had was not giving people access and making you wait another year before it was even available. So, some ways you've got to accept that if you're buying a beta product, you are going to wait some time, and it's as simple as that.
I'm looking. I think I'll see a couple of units in Miranda next week, but I'm still a little bit bewildered as to how anybody is going to get over the hill that's right there. I've seen some guys have got some massive dishes, but it doesn't matter how big it is. It's not going to get over that hill.
No, well, he was saying, I'm testing this at the moment. Now, this is the Skydrone's HD Link. Now, it's similar to Hearlink, but it isn't a remote controller. It's a let me just find that bit of it. Let's see, it's attached to a cube. It's a 2.4 gig control link that sends video, but it connects to your laptop. So it's got the live video, and it attaches to Mission Planner as well as their own software as well. And again, it's saying up to 20 kilometers. I think it's 24 kilometers HD link with that, and I'm going to test that in the same way I'm tested the Hearlink. On the bench, it's got very, very good latency. Very, very, very good latency. In fact, it was up there with the DJI FPV system. It surprised me how good it was. But again, but even if you've got something like that, Gary, at the Rwanda, as you say, you're not going to get over that horizon. You're not going to, once that falls off, you're going to have that same problem.
Skytrain saying Pixel electric scooters. Well, funnily enough, quite a couple of micro mobility companies do want to do exactly that, so they can reposition the scooters at times of busyness in another part of the city, or when Joe Blogs gets off the scooter at the other end of town, the scooter takes itself back into town, so they get rid of the army of people that are having to pick the things up. So that is actually already a thing. They have a couple of little extra.
Have you seen in the UK? They're looking to retract the law that makes them illegal. They are looking to retract the law. I am the day that happens, I am going to buy an electric scooter.
And then in New Zealand, the accident rate's gone through the roof with them, and people hurting themselves. So they're not. Yeah, they're an interesting thing. So you're gonna have one straight away, are you?
I want one. I've always wanted. I want to drive down. I want to try and do. It's going to end terribly. It's going to end with me probably dead. But I want to see how Casey Neistat can go through the center of New York with a digital SLR on a Gorilla Pod, blogging. I'm going to try it.
Well, why wouldn't you get an electric bicycle? I don't quite understand why you want a scooter over. Oh, hello! Here comes something to screen share.
Oh, come on, Ross!
Here we go.
Oh, we got Bruce.
Go on then, Bruce. Here it is. Oh, employee gets fired. Oh, that's that lad's video, isn't it?
So they're ripping off other people's content.
Arthur Bell. Oh yeah, Arthur. We all know Arthur, don't we? Is Bruce also got no sound now? I himself. We're waiting for the talk through from you, Bruce. Oh,
he's muted. He is.
Yeah, I was muted because I left this. Let's go back to big. I turned the sound off on the video because it's just music, and you don't want to get a copyright strike.
No, well, no.
Well, let's just finish it off. Come on.
Is there like a whole set of things one could get?
All we got to do is tick the copper box to say it was made for children, and we're ready to go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Drone. I can never get your name right there. Drone Droid. We've got scooters listed all over downtown. Yeah, that does look like the issue with this whole. But I think it's a huge rideshare bubble happening right now, and it's interesting. It's 2 years that market's been going really, and they're saying they're in the trough of disillusionment now. I mean that's pretty. That's pretty quick for them to get there. I think we've been in it for quite a while. We've been going 10, 20 years. Yeah, crazy.
So you're going to put him back on, Bruce. Let's have a look at this.
Yeah, I've just got to work out how to do this again now.
Right, you put it up, and I'll add it back on. You can
right,
talk
hang on.
whatever.
It's all very complicated. This whole
it's seamless.
Yeah, I've not tried. Why aren't you using OBS again, Guy? What was the reason you wouldn't use OBS Studio?
Because 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 I haven't got the bandwidth to pull in several streams and then share them out again.
That's right. But so this doesn't do that. This uploads yours and centrally does it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. That's the
Trying
reason.
to work out
Come on.
No,
Chris.
how to make this go.
So I didn't do a live stream this weekend. Unfortunately, I was tied up. But I was just wondering. Obviously, I'm using the OBS. I might look at this. I might look at this software because I do like it. It's a nice layout, isn't it? And
it seems to work quite well. Except now Bruce's that video's
Hang
gone.
on.
You can't tell.
Are we there yet? Why isn't it doing
I'm going to add it to the stream, and
you're going to add it.
You can, because so everyone can join in now. There we are. I see.
Yeah.
It took
Here we go.
seconds
I
for
just
you.
started playing. Here we go. So yeah, the drone's indestructible, but the car's not.
And yeah, that's a few years old. That bit of video, isn't it?
Yeah, but look at this. This is Arthur Bell, apparently. Look, see how he looks there.
Look at the way he sold it.
Yeah.
Oh.
He worked for the R&D department who made this drone. So I wonder who would that be? I have no idea. Yeah.
yeah.
And but then they merged with the tech giant. I thought they were a tech giant.
He didn't look very Chinese, did he?
No. And a huge fraud by top management. This is the company he was working for, remember, that made Phantom drones. They were secretly cutting costs by using low-quality parts. Ooh. And that was their main goal. Who'd have thought? And
see that? Oh, wow.
See that product?
Oh, gosh, yes.
Yeah. They want to squeeze as much profit, see?
Go well.
$170 went to marketing and advertising.
Honestly, they are ripping it off left.
And they're impugning DJI's good reputation. I mean, I can't believe that they let them do this.
My hands up in the board.
Customers are ignorant enough to pay full price. We love our customers.
And didn't agree. No, hang on.
And look, he looks different there. He's got a lot less hair in this. See, there's Arthur Bell. He has a lot less hair now.
Well, when you're under that much strain, when you're that worried about what your company's doing.
Terrible thing.
Yeah, look, he's taking out drinking.
Yeah,
his beard's smaller now. Must have trimmed it.
I didn't realise DJI did so much development in the USA.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And look, ooh, amazing technology.
It's interesting.
He's using. Look at those high quality parts that look just like a Mavic.
Yeah. Now that's a direct rip-off of DJI's video showing the Mavic in the early days. Yeah. Or the Maverick, as it once was.
Maverick.
Yeah.
Well, it was. They had to change the name.
Oh, no.
Did they really do that?
Look at that. It feels good in your hands. Doesn't fly good, but it feels good in your hand. It flies more stable than any other drone.
Arthur Bell gets quoted every time.
He does. He's very.
Tell you what, name dropping, boom, boom.
Yeah.
That rings.
Let's get him on. Let's get him on.
Yeah.
I wonder if Arthur Bell's at the end of this video.
Don't know, but this doesn't have GPS, but anyone can fly it still.
He must be at the end of his tether, old Bell.
His brother was up in the air for 30 seconds.
Yeah, they will. They will if you throw them hard enough.
Yeah.
You can keep your brothers up there for ages.
So you should.
You've got one coming your way, have you, Bruce?
I have one on my bench at the moment.
Do you?
Yep, yeah, I do.
All right, time to bring in our special.
Sure. Look, ultrawide. That's not a drone X. That's a bloody Mavic.
That's a Mavic Pro. Yeah.
It's
down there like DJI. Yeah. See, it's classic bait and switch, isn't it? They're showing you.
Can I find him on LinkedIn? Yes, I'm sure you will have known because that is basically LinkedIn.
Remember, I use his Wi-Fi for the camera connection.
It'll be at the end. Just keep a look for him.
But it's
LinkedIn
makes
a big difference. That's brilliant.
That's an Ishin thing.
Do you know, I didn't realise they'd shrunk it so much, the Mavic. Honestly, DJI have done incredible work, haven't they, on
only under $150 New Zealand. And it's affordable because this is the bit that catches you. We don't spend a dime on advertising. Okay. Look at this. YouTube advertising.
That's the old Tesla thing, isn't it?
Has anyone reviewed this on YouTube? Has anyone actually reviewed this? Do you know what I mean?
Because they have an affiliate scheme, so people are shilling the hell out of it.
Are they? That's what I was.
Yeah.
Are they?
Some are. I think probably by now there's
ad, isn't it?
Fake. Yeah. I'm just wondering if anyone's been dull enough to fall for that bait.
Well, lots of people have bought them.
Do you know what I feel? And what really pisses me off, pardon my French, in this is the parents who've been conned on this, because you've got little Johnny who's gone, Mum and Dad, I want a Mavic for Christmas, and little Johnny's mum and dad go online and say, oh, it's £1,000, but wait a minute, we can find it. I found it for 150 quid, and have we lost him?
Hang on.
Oh, he's
pushed the wrong button. It's so complicated.
That's the sad part about this, is the parents that'll be conned. The people. If you're old enough to order it, you should be able to spot something that looks off, and if you can't, you should be able to get some recourse. But parents at Christmas, that's what I feel for, because it's going to have had a lot of people that it really would have. It's just wrong.
And if you look online, there's a few areas where people they've ordered these things and they've got something completely different, and it's like it doesn't even work, and they can't get their money back, and it's certainly there's a major scam in this. It's not just like false advertising. There's actually a major scam.
It's funny. I've always been very vocal on the forums of purchasing any drone-related product in your home country. I don't like Banggood. I have their links because people like to use it, but I have always said, especially because of the UK and the laws we've got, we have so much protection in this country on purchasing, far more than the US, far more than anywhere else. Always buy it from an official retailer as in your country, and it might cost you 100 quid more, but you have 10 times the protection than you do. And if you import it, you are on your own. And that is the problem with it,
Well, I always sort of take the view of the two viewpoints I take. First is our postal service is so slow that it's a big surprise when things do arrive months and months later, and you've generally forgotten.
That's protecting you from the coronavirus, because by the time it takes to get from Banggood to your place, all the virus on the outside will have died. It's a safety feature, Gary.
What they're going to do now is they're going to dip every product that comes in. So just make sure you dry your electronics out before you get it, because they're just going to drop it in a bath of chemical before it comes out. So make sure.
I ordered some corona servos, and they're still in quarantine.
Oh yes. Not a lot of people know that. But there's that. But I never, if I do buy from overseas, I'll never buy stuff or to a value that I can't think
you can't lose.
Wouldn't mind if I lose. Otherwise.
It's just not worth it. It's just, 200 quid is not worth saving it with the consumer protection laws you got in the UK. If you have a problem, you are covered fully in the UK. And I've used them to the best of my abilities over the years. I work in that industry, therefore I know consumer laws inside out. So I'm able to exercise them to the best of your ability. But you just have so much protection. You really do. And it's thing. Did you see, I suppose we should mention it, the Skydio go for a swim?
They went in the drink. Yes.
They are replacing it, which is good. I got into a bit of another argument with some of my fans on the internet. I've spent the week being with people. Yeah, I have. Which is, look, when you do this wonderful thing called YouTube, you will pick up people who love you and pick up people who hate you. I don't think it's fair to say it's a reflection of the Skydio warranty. When a big YouTube channel has something on film that flies into the drink, they're going to replace it. Let's be honest. They're not going to sit there and say it's your own fault. But what was good is they have sorted it out for him. They sent him another one, and they've hopefully learned from that one. It's a bit of a weird incident, if I'm honest, because it's sort of just
pushing the thing, though, isn't he? That's
clearly.
Thing, I mean, it's
a lot of the behaviour was not the aircraft's fault, but it was in clear GPS, and it shouldn't have just gone. But hopefully they'll learn from it. I think
you were talking about that Skydio that went in the drink. I'm sure you saw that video, didn't you, Bruce?
What I get eminently frustrated if people say it's uncrashable. Every drone will crash. No product is perfect. It will break. It will do silly stuff. We had this poor gentleman who flew it into the bridge. Yes, it was his fault, but nothing is perfect. And that's not being anti-Skydio. That's not being pro anyone. You have to be realistic on this stuff. There will be incidents. There will be situations where people put it in that it was not designed to do.
Absolutely right, yes. In the hands of a CAA certified expert, anything is crashable.
Anything is. It's interesting. It's gone very quiet. I don't know how many the guys are shipping. I'd like to... Great, if we can get Adam... See if we can get Adam back on. It'd be good for an
I
update.
will. Yeah. All right, I'll do it. I'll email him straight after this.
It'd be great to have an update of where we are with the European models as well, because come on, get on with it. We'd like to see it over here as well. It's a great product. It isn't perfect, but it's still, in my opinion, very close to the #1 choice right now. Depends I still don't think it's the best camera drone out there in that money.
Yeah.
But I think it is entirely unique, and it can do stuff no one else can do, period. And if you're into that, definitely go for it.
Well, you might say it's the best beginner camera drone, because if you've got some stick skills, then
I go the other way. I think you need experience to fly it. I think you need a bit more judgment. I think you need a bit more judgment of not to do silly things with it. Unfortunately, it's like anything. If you say it's brilliant, it'll go around anything, someone will find something it won't go around. It's probably the simplest to fly, because it has that autonomous mode where if you fly it forward and it sees an object, it'll just do that around it or go up over it. So it is very easy, but that doesn't mean it doesn't require pilot judgment. If you're going to try to fly it between power lines and they're all over the place, it's going to hit it. And yes, as Lewis mentioned, the Skydio SDK as well. So it's the most exciting drone of the last 12 months, period. It's very, very interesting. The camera is good. It's not quite up there with the 1-inch models, but that's to be expected. It isn't a 1-inch camera. So at the end of the day, it's never going to be perfect. But yeah, get it in Europe. I want to see it. I want to play with it.
But it's not very good underwater.
But it's not waterproof. But it's funny because everyone goes, every company will have problems. It's incredible, actually, they've had so little is probably the right term to use. If you look at everyone, it's been a very successful launch with
how many do we? We'll just guess how many are out in the wild, because that's all we can do.
I don't know, because it's interesting. Everything's gone a bit quiet, and I don't know if they're doing batches. There was a big batch before Christmas, and I don't know, are they drip feeding them out, or are they just going, that's them, and then the next batch will be released in, say, now or next week, and then I don't know if they're doing it like that. I'm not seeing as many as I thought I would out there, if I'm honest, and I don't think that's demand. The demand's there. People want it. So I just think they probably can't make them quick enough.
The one that I might get my hands on is in the 3rd batch, I believe. And that's I should be careful what I say. But so I think that's being shipped to a friend in America, and then sending it to another friend over here. So we shall see.
It was an interesting video. I thought it was worth mentioning. Again, it had quite a lot of views, but they've sorted him out. They've got him another one, which is good news. So,
do you think so made DJI go back to the drawing board?
I'm not so convinced on that. Look at this Phantom X concept from 2 and a bit years ago.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that's basically the same thing. I think everyone's been doing this. The interesting thing actually for DJI is this: Autel have gone the traditional object avoidance system. They've just added more cameras. It's like we're going to make it better.
No, but isn't the tradition to market a product and then release it late? That's the tradition.
Well, that's the drone industry. So, I got slammed for saying that about Autel, so I will be fair in saying DJI were delayed with the Mavic 2. The Mavic Pro was delayed as well. So just to put some balance in there.
But weren't those delays to do with what other people were pushing out, as well as other little finicky bits? Yeah. They shimmied that around to flatten other products coming out at the time.
What you can say with DJI is, when they deliver a solid product. I think it's fair to say, the Mavic 2 was delayed about a month. I think it was a month or so, but they then landed in mass quantity. It was fully available, no waiting, no in between, go get one. The Mavic Pro was a bit of a mess. And as Louis said, there was a bit of a mess back then as well. Autel have obviously delayed. They're going to be longer because China shut down. So Autel are going to be longer. I don't think there was ever a chance of that releasing when they said, and it didn't hit me that the fact of they said they were going to release it on Chinese New Year. That just made no sense, because that means it would have been shipping 2 weeks before. How I didn't spot that when I was doing some of the stuff I was talking about, I don't know. But if you look at Autel in the Evo 2 have gone the traditional object avoidance route with more cameras but the same system. Will DJI go that route, or will they try to do what Skydio have done, which is entirely different with proper 4K? It's not object avoidance. That's not the right term to use. I'm trying to think, what would you call it? Because object avoidance
intelligent navigation.
Yeah, that's probably the right term, Bruce, more than it's looking at its entire surroundings all of the time and flying based on it. And the other systems are looking for something to get in the way and then move.
Surely we're all desperate to pull that 3D data and store it.
Yeah.
So that we can then recreate 3D models of the surrounding, isn't it? Isn't it what everyone's doing with photogrammetry on board?
And so we can look in old ladies' windows.
People have often said, can DJ catch up? The rumor is they have 11,000 engineers. They can do what they want. Look, they've got the resources, they've got the money, they've got the power. The decision is what they want to do and which way they want to take it. I honestly don't know what we'll see. I honestly don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see anything as close as people say on the Mavic side of things. People are saying in the next month or so. I think they can afford to hold off even longer until the whole NPRM is dealt with. The Mavic Mini is selling really, really well. There's lots of other stuff that they'll probably...
The digital FPV gear is selling far better than I think anyone thought it would.
They're in a holding pattern. They don't have to rush anything, or they will do a very minor update to push sales forward, and they won't worry about what people say. Oh, it's not as good as this, or it's not as good as that. They'll just go, "This is what we're doing," and slam the price, because that's the one game they've got that no one else can compete with.
Are we keeping you up, Gary?
Yeah.
They can take $500 off the price overnight. And that's what they can do that no one else can.
Yeah, because the Drone X ad proved that.
Yeah.
That's true. I saw a pie chart and everything all about that in that advert. So it was there in red and yellow and green. I could see the evidence plainly before me. And I could also see that for some reason their executives like to stand in a line like this. And then every company I've ever worked for, that's when you know you're with the execs, because they're all the people in a line.
Yeah,
there's always a token woman and a token person from another race. It's very well put together.
You've been watching the BBC, haven't you?
Well, I suppose, yeah. I mean, it is. Look, we've been going an hour and 40. This is an hour and 40 of nonsense. What other
that's a good rant, actually.
We have rant filled. What other ranty things might we talk about before we depart? Have we seen anything else that's really rant worthy?
As I said earlier, I've noticed the American providers are getting a bit vocal now around NPRM and things like Kitty Hawk and those. And as I said,
but they're at the point where they're burning down their VC money, and it hasn't all opened up as they expected it to. So I've heard that one of them has given up on the idea of a UTM and is putting its time in its sort of services sort of dial up. How can I say it without naming names? A service that you might use to get yourself jobs. I've heard that they bought that, and that's what they're putting their time in now.
Well, I've been looking into Kitty Hawk a little bit as a good friend of mine, and we've been doing a little bit of digging. It's interesting. They had £5 million in VC funding a few years ago. That doesn't go far. So what's funding them? I don't know. That's pennies in the grand scheme.
Well,
of things.
the FAA will be helping them along because they're the provider of the FAA, and they look. The Kitty Hawk and Josh Ziering's been on there many times, and they had the logbook side of it. It was a good idea. It's a good platform, and it's not them I'm talking about when I'm not naming a company. But yeah, I hear there is one that is pulling back from its UTM ambitions, which is going to be a good thing.
Here's an idea. Why don't you try and get someone from the BMFA and someone from the AMA and someone from the various model bodies around the world, get them all together on one show and try and see what they're doing globally to halt the erosion of the hobby. I mean, I'm sure they'll leap at the opportunity, and I promise to be quiet for a little bit.
Look, we're letting Louis misses it if we don't mention Gatwick. I did say Gatwick earlier, didn't I? No, I didn't. No, he sort of because those people have been arrested. Yeah, we didn't go the Gatwick way. But Louis, don't worry. There is work afoot on that subject, and we're going to have lots to say on it soon, hopefully. And it is as dodgy as we.
It'll never get out. Look, he's going to get kidnapped, tied up, and found naked in a river somewhere long before those requests are ever set out into day. That's why he's working on his house. That's why he's doing all that work. They'll find him behind a wall in his house or in his garden.
I've watched that series as well. What's it just been on? The Stranger or whatever it is. Yeah. The new Netflix thing with Jennifer Saunders in it for like 30 seconds. Whatever. Anyway, no spoilers.
He'll be found under a piece of oak in his garden.
Yes, I saw that thing in Madrid. But to be fair, I think press reports of airfields being closed down because of rogue drones seem to be on the decline. They're not as frequent as they were. But that Madrid one did make the press here as well. But yeah, they seem to be on the decline. Look,
what I want to know is, we have those two people that live near Gatwick. Were they in Madrid at the time? Do we have suspects?
Are they in Madrid now? Yeah, have they been on holiday?
Do we have suspects? We can arrest them.
Don't need evidence.
No, don't need evidence. Don't need evidence.
Suspicions enough.
Yeah, no, it's bad news. Right, gentlemen, we are definitely going into rant mode, and I'm tired. As Bruce has noted. So
Gary's the only person I know who has bed here before he gets into bed.
At least I got it. Anyway,
we're on a loser year, mate. Come on.
Yeah, 2 out of 3. Yeah, there we are.
Come to something when Bruce has got more here than I have.
Which part of the modelling community are you going to upset this week, Bruce, with some other video about?
Me? I don't know what you mean. I have no idea what you're talking about.
And the retraction, the
retraction video was weird.
That was fantastic. But you stirred up a hornet's nest there with your mention of the Battle of Britain and such like. That did well there. I saw lots of interesting comments about that one.
Apparently, lots of people were posting link to the BMFA Facebook page, and BMFA were busy taking it down.
Gosh. Yeah,
it's not an official BMFA site page, as I understand it, if I remember, because I'm a member of that, and it's third party, isn't it? So
it is. And the keyword is Zocht 250 grams. Yes. Oh yeah, we're going to wait for that video, haven't we? That's right. That one's coming. You told us so. You promised that. And Ian, what's your next video? You didn't put a link. Did you put a link in the comments?
I put it in the comments. I did put it in there. I'll shill it again in a minute because it needs the views, that one. I haven't decided. I've got the stuff I'm working on with Sky Drones, but again, just like I did last time, I'm in the middle of winter and I'm trying to test a HG Link outside in Wales.
Oh, yes, that's right.
In the middle of winter, these things are not a good idea where I live. I'm going to start doing a few ones. I've got some equipment I want to talk about. One of the things I want to do a bit this year is talk a bit more about some of the tools and equipment we use, little videos around that stuff as well. I wanted to talk about. I've had a lot of interest in finishing off my PC one, and I need to get the rover done. Have I got something coming? I'm trying to think. I forget. The problem is, I honestly turned down 99% of stuff. And if anyone follows me on Twitter, they saw my rant the other day of someone who tried to set conditions on something they wanted to send me to look at, and it was basically fuck off. I'm just trying to remember if I have got something coming or not. Honestly, I can't remember. No, I can't remember. Perhaps I haven't. But I've got the rover. I need to get back onto the rover now. And then some more on the RoboMaster, try and do a bit more around Sketch. And I've got the Pixhawk builds, which I keep putting off accidentally. So I really need to start doing a full cube build. I'm going to do it on a F550. And the idea is to take it through from start to end with the latest version of AutoPilot, and just to try and get people up to date on where we are today, because a lot has changed. A lot has changed in 4.0, and there's a lot of stuff around that. And hopefully, if Solex ever lands, we can do something on the Hearlink on that as well.
Indeed,
and if DJI release something, then we'll see what we can do. But
be the home arrow soon, won't it? On the
the FPV will have that in the next. Well, it's probably going to be delayed, although that's mostly coming out of Singapore. Then again, as you said earlier, I would expect the Evo 2 to be another 2-3 months on top of what they've said right now. To be honest, it's going to cause some issues, this China thing. So
another top comment there that we should probably take a moment and consider. Thank you, dear viewers. Some top insightful and sort of wellness and mindfulness, isn't it, in the modern world? And
this is getting a bit like Gerald Undone, because if anyone watches Gerald Undone, he always starts one of his videos with a random comment like that. I'll just say this: I don't know if anyone does watch Gerald Undone and iPhondo. If anyone has those two big YouTube channels, Gerald has just done a studio tour of iPhondo. It's one of the best videos I have seen in a long time. Just two guys. He goes to his studio and has a walk around, and he did it with Make Art Now as well. And he's doing this cool thing where they're going around YouTube studio people and just looking at their setup. How do you do your videos? What do you do? And it's like a documentary. And it's interesting. I'm finding YouTube is turning more like a TV all the time. It's becoming more like TV the way some of these, it's programs. I'm looking forward to the next episode. It's really good stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's, as you say, it's becoming TV. But on that note, I think it's time to go to bed. So, dear viewers, wherever you are in the world, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for putting up with our nonsense. Hopefully next week I'll be in Rwanda and be doing this from the lakeside. We shall see. We shall see if the internet gods shine down on us and all those other good things. Gentlemen, thank you. I look forward to seeing your videos this week. Dear viewers, be safe, whatever you're doing. 2100 GMT next week. Cheers, everybody. Bye-bye. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Oh, move the mouse, Mortimer. Move the mouse.